Hello everyone, my name is Hannah. Welcome to a new video. So today's video is going to be my October wrap up. So talking about all of the books that I read in October. This month, I don't even know how many books I read. I should count that. But I do know that I had so many DNFs. This was the month of DNFs for me. It was not fun. Okay, so I read 13 books. I DNF'd 7. So like 20 books. But not 20 because I didn't finish 7 of them. I got pretty far in some of them, not so far in others, but yeah, let's just get right into it. Okay, we're gonna talk about all of the books that I DNF'd. It is its own little stack here. So yeah, we're just gonna talk about them. So the first book that I DNF'd this month was a buddy read, and it was The Book of Azrael by Amber Nicole. So this is book 1 in Gods and Monsters. It's a fantasy romance. I was buddy reading this with my best friend Rachel over at Raven-Haired Reader, and neither of us was really enjoying it. I think I got about 60 pages in, 70 pages in, so I was like really just beginning it. But I think Rachel got over 100 pages in and she was like, I just don't care. And I was like, I don't care about anything that's happening. I would keep reading if you want to keep reading. And she was like, I'll keep reading if you want to keep reading. And I was like, if you want to DNF, let me know and I'll DNF with you. And so we kind of went back and forth for a little bit where we're like, what are you feeling? And Rachel was like, I kind of want to DNF. And I was like, okay, cool. I kind of want to DNF too. So we both buddy DNF'd this. Yeah, it's not one, like, it's not like it was bad. I just didn't care. Maybe eventually I'll want to pick this back up. Maybe eventually this will be exactly what I'm in the mood for. So it just didn't work out this time. Ended up buddy DNFing it. The next book I DNF'd, I'm so disappointed about because I was so hyped for this book, and that is Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. This is another fantasy romance. I saw it for the first time on Riley Marie's channel, and she said it's one of her favorite books of all time, and I was just like so excited to read it, and I got like 100 pages into it and I just didn't care. This is where I got 95 pages in. Okay, so it was just boring, and like I didn't care about the characters at all, and I could tell that if I kept reading this it would put me in a slump. And so I just decided to DNF it. This, again, is maybe one, like, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't good. So maybe I just am not in the right mood for this, but I'm just going to DNF it. If I ever want to pick it back up, I do have it. I mean, this was very kindly gifted to me from my friend Manda. So I do have this. If I ever want to try to give it a second shot, who knows? Maybe in a few years, I want to give this a second shot and I'll end up loving it. But this time around, it just did not work for me, so I DNF'd it. I also DNF'd Chasing Love by Kat T. Mason. This is book 1 in the Dark Love series. So this is a second chance brother's friend romance, I think. I don't know. I didn't get very far in this. I honestly don't even remember what page I got. It was less than 50 pages though. But I just thought the writing in this was so cringy. And the dialogue, like, it was mainly the dialogue. Like, who talks like that? I don't know. I just couldn't get past it. Like every sentence I was reading, I was like, what? Yeah, I don't have anything to say about this book. I DNF'd it. Here it is. All right. Then we got to the point in the month where I DNF'd 4 books in a row. I have a vlog where I read and DNF these books. It was a very disappointing week for me. So the first book that I decided to DNF during that week, during that vlog, was Thistlefoot by Jenna Rose Nethercott. This, again, was a case of, it wasn't bad, I just didn't care. Like, this one I got almost halfway. Like, I think I was about here when I DNF'd it. And while I was reading it, it was fine. Like, it was a story that I was reading. It was fine. Nothing bad. But as soon as I would put it down, nothing pulled me to pick this back up. I'd forget all about it. Like, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm reading Thistlefoot. Like, nothing drew me back in. It's a Baba Yaga retelling. I thought it would be good for like Halloween time. And for a hot second there, I thought, maybe I just won't even read it. And then I was like, no, I should give it a shot. I should give it a shot. Since I selected it as my book of the month pick, I should give it a shot. And it was fine. Like there's nothing bad to say about it. I just didn't care what was happening. Like I wasn't pulled back. So I just decided like I've got other books that I'm more excited to read. I'm just gonna put this one down and move on with my life. And that's what I did. These next two, I DNF'd both in a single night. So that was a fun time for me. And they're both by the same author. So I was really in the mood for an adult romance, just some like spice and just like a fun little adult romance, okay? And I picked up Throttled by Lauren Asher, which is book 1 in the Dirty Air series. It's an F1 racing sports romance between this girl and her brother's teammate, former rival, now teammate. And I really did not enjoy this. So Thistlefoot was one where it was like, there's nothing bad to say about it. I just didn't care. This one, I did not like this at all. I didn't like the writing. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the dialogue. I thought it was so cringy and I just like couldn't move past it. Like I was annoyed reading this book. I think I only got like 40 pages in and I was like, I literally cannot do this. I cannot do this. Like, no. So I just decided like, this is not it for me. This is not it for me. And I know people said like towards the end of the book, it gets good. Like I don't care to read through that. I just DNF'd this one and thought, you know what? Let me pick up this author's other popular book, The Fine Print, which is book 1 in the Dreamland Billionaires series, which I've heard is better than the Throttled Dirty Air series. Yeah, this author's writing is just not for me. It was the same level of just like overly cringy dialogue and like the characters were just did not like them. Yeah, this author's writing is just not for me. So 2 back-to-back in one night DNFs from the same author. So I will probably not be picking up anything by Lauren Asher because her books are just not for me. I'm so glad that other people love them. I'm not the one though. So now, I was still in the mood for an adult romance with some spice, and I thought, this is the perfect time to pick up Twisted Games by Anna Huang. So I read Twisted Love this summer, and I hated it. It's going to be my worst book of the year. I'm just so confident in that. I gave it 1 star, absolutely hated it. It's probably the worst book that I've ever read. I hated everything about it. I should have DNF'd it, but I just kept pushing through thinking like, it's got to get better. It's got to get better. And it never did. And now I'm like, why did I waste that precious reading time on that book? Like, no. But I've heard that the other books in the series are a lot better. And like the first book is everybody's like least favorite book. People don't like it, but they end up loving the rest of the series. And I have friends who have read Twisted Games, and then the next one is Twisted Hate or something like that, and they love those. And so I thought I'll give it a try. Well, I picked up Twisted Games this summer, I think maybe in August or July, I don't even know. And I DNF'd it at 60-something pages, and I thought that at the time it was because I was just in a funk, like in a reading funk, and so I didn't give it a fair shot. So this time I was like, no, okay, I'm ready to give it a second shot. And I was enjoying it more than the first time I read it and DNF'd it. Like, I was enjoying it more this time. I got nearly 300 pages into that book before I decided to DNF it. I don't even want to talk about it, honestly. Like, I'm so frustrated. That is another case of that author's writing is just not for me. I will not be continuing on with the Twisted series. I will not read anything else from Anna Huang. I just don't think that her writing is for me. I had an issue with the spicy scenes, like the smut. It wasn't bad. It was just there's there's a very specific thing to me that I don't enjoy that I know other people do enjoy or they don't mind. But it really bothers me in spice. And I have a really hard time like looking past that. Like as soon as that happens, I'm just like instantly like I shut down and I'm done and I don't want to read anymore. I don't care about like the characters, mainly the guy, because it's something that he says and it just really bothers me. So I got to that part and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And like up to that point, it was feeling like a 3-star book. So it's not like I was loving it and then all of a sudden that happened and I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm done now. Like it was like, it wasn't going to be worth it for me to push through to finish the last 100 pages. So I just DNF'd it. So yeah, that was 4 DNFs in a row. 7 DNFs total. I mean, it's got its own little stack here. Let's move on now. Let's move on now to books that I did finish and enjoy. Okay, first up we have Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is a great transition book from DNFs to books I finished because this is a former DNF. I read this several years ago, probably like 5 years ago, and DNF'd it in the first like 100 pages. I honestly only remembered like the first chapter. I DNF'd it several years ago, and I recently decided to pick this one up again because I read Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, and one of the main characters in that book appears in this series and has like some backstory that I really want. So I thought I'll give it another shot. And I ended up really liking it. It's like these 2 sisters get entered into this like magical game, like this competition. And if you win this competition or this game, you get 1 wish. And it's got like magic. It has very whimsical writing. And then the one sister, like as she gets like entered into this game, ends up being like a piece in the game and she gets kidnapped. And so the main character, Scarlett, has to end up like trying to solve this mystery and win the game so she can find out where her sister is. All the while, like all these other people are like playing this game as well. And like, she's not sure who she can trust and all this stuff. And I really enjoyed this. I really liked the magical game aspect. I ended up giving it 4 stars and I am eager to continue the series so that I can get to The Ballad of Never After. But yeah, I have Legendary and Finale on my November TBR, so hopefully I will be reading those in November and continuing on with the story. Next up, I have These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Ryan. This is the second and final book in this duology. The first book is These Hollow Vows, and I was really anticipating this one. It came out in July, and I just hadn't gotten to it until now. But I really liked the first book. The start of it was a little rocky for me, but then I ended up really enjoying it, having a fun time with it. And so I was excited to get to this one. It's about this human girl who goes to like a fae realm, and then she's kind of in a love triangle between these 2 fae. I honestly don't even know how much to say without spoilers since this is the second book. So I'm not going to talk too much about like what it's about, but I will say I was super loving this for the majority of it. And then the ending, like probably about here, I was enjoying all of this, thinking it was going to be like a 4.5. And then the ending happened and it was so rushed, so convenient, and so ridiculous that I was like really annoyed by the end of it. I mean, I like how it ended, but like we could have taken more time to get there so that it was like a smooth ending. This is like, I mean, it's like a pretty long book. It's like what, 450 pages or something like that? Yeah, like 460 pages. And there was some stuff that happened in here that wasn't necessary, that could have been cut in order to lengthen the ending. So it wasn't like the last 30 pages was like everything was happening all at once. So I ended up giving this 3.5 because the ending was way too rushed and needed more time. It just needed more time. Next up, I read The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. It's like very witchy. It was perfect to read in October. It's a warm, uplifting novel about an isolated witch whose opportunity to embrace a quirky new family and a new love changes the course of her life. I feel like that wraps it up very well, what this book is about. It's got a found family aspect to it. This witch who is very isolated takes this job to kind of nanny and teach these 3 young witches about magic because they live in this house with a bunch of non-magic people and they need to learn to control their magic. And it's just got a really cute found family aspect to it, and it talks about like loneliness and needing other people. And I loved all of the magic aspect to it. There's lots of like magic spells and potions and stuff like that. That was really, really fun. So this was definitely a cute book, perfect to read for October. If you're in the mood for like a witchy little romance, I would recommend this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Then I did a 24-hour readathon with some of my best friends, and I read 4 books for that. So the first one was Belladonna by Adeline Grace. So this book is getting lots of buzz right now. It is kind of a gothic, more paranormal romance. It's got like ghosts in it, and death is the love interest, but I wouldn't say it's like fantasy. I mean, there is like a kind of magic element, more like a paranormal ability, I guess. This girl, Signa, is able to see death, and like death can't take her, so she can't really die. She's able to like communicate with ghosts and stuff like that. And she goes to this house where her aunt has recently died. And as she's like talking to her aunt's ghost, her aunt can't really communicate as a ghost because something happened, but she realizes that her aunt was actually murdered. And so she's trying to solve this murder while also trying to prevent another murder from happening. And all the while she is dealing with death, like personified. So there's a bit of a romance aspect to it. And I loved this. I ate this up. It was the perfect book to start a 24-hour readathon on because I didn't want to put it down, and I just absolutely loved it. I gave this 5 stars. I really liked the writing, and I'm definitely excited for the sequel, Foxglove, which comes out next August. I'll be picking it up right away. I can't wait. This is probably going to make my favorites of the year list. Then I listened to the audiobook for The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is a companion novel to The Ex-Hex, which I read last year, and this one was kind of similar in like what it was giving. So it's a small town romance with magic, but it was just kind of lacking, which is kind of what I felt about The Ex-Hex as well. Just, I don't know, it was just missing something. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I don't have like a ton to say about it. I feel like that is the case for a lot of 3-star books. Like, it wasn't bad, it wasn't good, it just was, and that's really all I have to say about it. If there's another book, like a companion book, I probably won't read it just because both of them have been 3 stars and they've just been kind of like meh. So I probably won't continue if there's more books in this little like companion series. Then I picked up Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shay Earnshaw. This is a like continuation novelization after the Nightmare Before Christmas movie by Tim Burton, which I just recently watched for the first time with my best friends, Lachlan, Cami, and Rachel, and this just seemed like the perfect book to pick up for a like Halloween time readathon. So I picked this one up. I had it only on audio and I did enjoy it. It's basically all about Sally following the events after like how the Nightmare Before Christmas ends. And you get to visit a few of the other like towns. There's like Halloween Town and there's Christmas Town, but we get to go to Valentine's Day Town, and you get a little bit of Sally's backstory a bit more and like stuff from her past. So that was really interesting, but I did feel that this was kind of written like a middle grade almost, and I just feel like if I had watched The Nightmare Before Christmas as a kid and grown up loving it and having that nostalgia, I probably would have liked this way more, but because I didn't have that nostalgia, I ended up giving it a 3.5. Like, I did like it, but I wasn't like in love with it, and it wasn't like anything crazy. But I know a lot of people that are reading this book right now are like giving it 5 stars. But yeah, I did like it, but it wasn't anything crazy to me. And then I ended that 24-hour readathon picking up Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. I didn't finish this in the 24-hour period, but I did finish it the next day. Sarah Addison Allen writes a lot of small town magical realism stories, and this is along that line. It follows this girl Zoe who goes to this small town, and she's got to like claim her mother's apartment who just died, and there's like a bit of a mystery element, and there's another like found family aspect to this book as well. I do like how Sarah Addison Allen writes magical realism. I think she writes it in like a really beautiful, whimsical way, but this one I just like, I don't know, I just didn't connect. It might have had to do with the fact that I was like tired while reading this, but I don't know, I just feel like this one is not like my favorite by her. I think the Garden Spells series, I think there's only 2 books in that actually, but they're companions. But Garden Spells I absolutely loved. But yeah, this one was just like, okay. I ended up giving it 3 stars because I don't know, I just feel like I slap a 3-star on when I'm just kind of like about a book. So that's how I feel about this one. Then I decided to pick up Black Sunshine by Karina Halle. So I picked this up on Kindle Unlimited. I had the audiobook as well. Like when I got the Kindle Unlimited book, it offered me the Audible narration for like half the price. So I got that and I followed along. And this is basically just a spicy vampire romance. It follows, I don't even know the main character's name anymore. I'm completely spacing. It follows this girl though who doesn't realize that she is part vampire, and when she turns 21, I think, her like nature starts to come out, and she gets like kidnapped by this like vampire lord basically to help her transition, and she realizes that she is half vampire, half witch. And there's a lot going on, and she's trying to figure out like who she is and why this is like such a big deal, because people are also trying to hunt her down. And it did have really, really good spice. I liked this one, and I will be continuing on with the series. So I will continue on with the Black Sunshine story because I think there's only one other book. But I did really like this one, and I'm going to give it 4 stars. All right, next up, I read The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So I have had this book for so long. I think I got it in May. This originally was supposed to be published in March, and then the hardback got pushed back. So the paperback came out in March, but the hardback printing, something was going on with it, and so it got pushed back, and I didn't get it till May. And then I've put it on so many TBRs and like said I was going to pick it up so many times and just never did. But I finally picked it up, and I'm so glad I did because I did really enjoy this. A lot of people were giving this book some hate when it first came out, and I just don't know why. Like, to me, if you liked the series before this book, you'll like this book. So I don't get like what people's like big gripe with this was, but I really liked it. So this is book 4 in the Blood and Ash series. So the first book from Blood and Ash. I really like that series. I think I gave the first 2 books 5 stars. The second book, Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, it's so good. But yeah, I really like where the story is headed. I did kind of forget what was going on when I started this. I was like reading it and I was like, what is happening? What is going on? So I had to go back and do a recap of the 3rd book. But once I started to remember like what happened at the end of the 3rd book, it was all starting to make sense again. But this book definitely felt like one giant info dump. There was so much information. Some of it new, some of it was like just repeated so that you really remember it. But there was so much information, but it wasn't like in a bad way. Like usually info dumping, I'm not a big fan of, but sometimes I'm just like, sometimes it's necessary because you need to know this information. But it was done in a way that like was more informative rather than just like annoying and regurgitating all these facts. Like the main character, Poppy, doesn't know a lot of this stuff, and so it's getting explained to her, but it wasn't done in like a bad way. Like it was done really well in my opinion, and I feel like we got a lot of answers and it opened up the world a lot. So I really liked the info dumping. But yeah, this was just like so much information. It's gonna be a lot to keep track of. But the prequel series, the Flesh and Fire series, is like really getting tied into this series now, especially with this book. It was in the 3rd book as well. Like the 3rd book came out, and then I think the first Flesh and Fire book, A Shadow in the Ember, came out, and it was like, ooh, I kind of remember those names. That stuff is making sense. But then it's really apparent that that stuff that's happening in the prequel series is becoming important to this series. So I am really happy about that because I loved the first prequel book, and now the second prequel book comes out in November. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was good. I don't know what else to say about it. I gave it 4 stars. All right, and then the last 3 books I'm just going to talk about all together. So My babies. Okay, so I read A Court of Mist and Fury. I read this one earlier in the month, and then I read it a second time. I read it twice in October. So this is my favorite book of all time. I feel like everybody and their mother knows that by now. But I absolutely love this book. I read it for my read along with Christina so we could do our live show. And then Rachel from Ravenhaired Reader was reading it or rereading it. And you know, it was a couple weeks after I had finished it, and she sent like a passage from it and was like, oh my God, and just sent like this like picture of it, one of the pages. And I was like, I kind of want to reread it now. And so she was like, do it. I love it. Do it. And so I did. I just picked it up and reread it. And that time when I went through it, I actually changed the tab colors. I don't know if you can even see that, but they're so much prettier and they match so much better now. And I just love it that they're not like the neon ones anymore. They actually match lots of blues and purples and pinks. And I think it's really pretty. So read this twice. And then my reread of A Court of Wings and Ruin and A Court of Frost and Starlight, I also went through and like did the tabs on this one as well. But you know, these are 5 stars. I read these for my read along with Christina, and we are doing our live show for that. I think it's November 4th. I think we're doing a Friday night. But yeah, I love this series so much, and it was just so great to reread those books. And yeah, 5 stars all around. So those are all of the books that I read and or DNF'd in the month of October. If you made it to the end of this video, leave a Halloween emoji down below, a ghost, a bat, a pumpkin, something very Halloween-y down below. Let me know what books you read in October or what your favorite book that you read in October was. Just leave a comment down below. I love reading your guys' comments. They literally are so much fun. It's so great. I will also leave all of my socials and stuff linked down below, my Goodreads, my Instagram, and I will leave links to my vlogs from this month if you want to go back and watch and see me read or DNF some of these books. If you didn't get a chance to do that yet, I'll leave those linked down below as well. And thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye.